right, welcome back to the PMR podcast. My name is Mitch. I'm an addict alcoholic. Episode 45. Very, very excited for this one. We got a very special guest coming on.
What's up, guys? I'm Andrew. I'm an addict and an alcoholic. Episode 45. Again, just blown away by each episode we stack onto this thing. It kind of just started out of nowhere a year ago, and here we are. I'm really, really excited to just keep doing this with you, man. And I'm wicked excited for our guest today. Ben, welcome to the podcast. And excited to hear your story and your philosophy after reading through some of your work and some of your some of your vision. And just a little background on Ben. His brother John is a good friend of mine through Heron. John got sober over a year ago, and he's been a great connection for me. And this is the beautiful part about the recovery community. I didn't ask anything. We were just shooting the shit, me and John, and he said, "Hey, I got a brother who I think would be a really great guest on the podcast," and 4 days later, here we are. So it's great, and Ben, we're psyched to have you on, man. It's a privilege to have, for you sharing all of that stuff, all of that great philosophy with us, and we're excited to learn more, man.
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you guys and appreciate what you're doing. This community, for better or worse, is growing rapidly, right? I wish it was a community that didn't even need to be had, but it is. And I think it's becoming increasingly important that we stick together. We've all battled some pretty intense stuff, and to know it and to go through it makes it a lot easier to connect with people. So I think it ultimately will get there in what I'm trying to do, but it's not far off what you guys are trying to do. Just build a community of like-minded individuals so we can all get better, every day.
100%. Yeah, community, like they like to say, is the antithesis of addiction. We come together, and that's how we can do it, really. I did want to ask you a question that we ask all of our guests. When you think of an addict or an alcoholic, what does that look like what does that look like for you today? And then maybe even what it used to look like before you got into recovery.
It's a good question. See, for me, I don't know if there's necessarily a difference between how I look at an addict now versus how I did then. Well, I mean, now in retrospect, 6+ years later, working on myself, getting things together, I truly believe addicts are special individuals, hardwired in a way that, most of the world is not. I believe that addicts possess that obsession, right? I need these drugs. I need the alcohol. And the things we would do to get them, I'll talk in I terms, the things I would do to get opiates would blow people, would blow a normal person's mind. So how I look at addicts is there truly is, I think addicts with the energy refocused and repurposed are the people who will change this world. And the people who have already changed this world, I think they have a sense of addict in them. They've just learned to redirect it either after going through an addiction phase or earlier in life where they realize, like, I can't focus on that because my life will be a disaster. But if I put my obsession towards something beneficial, who knows what will come of it. So I look at an addict as someone with potential beyond belief, as long as that individual can get his or her mind right and focus the energy. So I truly, deep down in my heart, I believe we're a special breed. We're lunatics, and I say that in the best way possible, right? Because it's lunatics that can change the world.
I love that definition. I don't think, Mitch, I don't think we've ever heard that particular spin on it before, from any of our guests. And we've had a lot of great definitions, a lot of great guests on, but uh, I personally love that, you know, there are positives to our addiction. Like,
100%.
you know, and we don't necessarily focus on that. Like, we are some of the most driven people in the world. And once we get, if we get fixated and you know, turn our attention to something that's beneficial, to something that, like, you know, could potentially help people, to something that, you know, is going to be a positive for us and for the community and for the world around us, then yeah, usually we won't, you know, just as we were in our active addiction, we won't stop until we get that thing.
Yep.
And that could be really, that can be a really, really beautiful thing. And I, you know what, honestly, Ben, I don't look at it like that all the time. You know, like I'm sometimes I'm used to like looking at myself and the addict in me as like there's something wrong with me, but instead, like, it could be a superpower, you know?
I've embraced it. I'm a full on maniac, and I'm fine with that. I it is what it is.
I love that.
I've made my decisions. What can I do about it? Absolutely nothing, except for to be better. That's the only time I'm looking back. Is it's like, okay, I have been in this situation before. How did I handle it? How am I going to handle it as the man I am today? Right.
Acceptance.
So, yeah. Yeah. I mean, I have surrender. We'll get into it. It's one of my principles, but I have surrender tattooed on me, and it's important. Control what you can. Fuck the rest.
I love that.
We're on this thing.
What's that? Yeah.
We're on this thing.
Yeah.
Shoot first, ask questions later, Ben.
That's right.
Yeah, I was going for it.
Welcome back to the PMR podcast. Before we get into this week's episode, I wanted to share with you our first partnership with Clean Cause. Clean Cause is a pretty awesome company. They sell yerba mate drinks. The founder is in recovery, and they put 50% of their net profits back into those struggling with addiction and alcoholism. Absolutely love their company, absolutely love their message, and very thankful for them to partner with us. If you're interested in getting some, you go to their website, cleancause.com. All right. When you're checking out, you're going to enter in Mitch20 into the discount code area, and that's going to get you 20% off on these fire drinks. Right now, I got that cherry lime. All right. Enjoy this week. Speaking of getting into your story, wherever you'd like to jump off and share as much or as little as you'd like, I'm super, super excited to hear it.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so I'm going to take this in a direction where it's twofold. It's prior to rehab and post rehab. Prior to rehab, I'm not going to go into any war stories per se. We all have them. Some are worse than others, right? Like, I may say something and people are like, that's all, that's it. And other people might be like, holy shit, you're crazy. So, like, getting into the war stories doesn't matter to me. And I even saw this in rehab, the hierarchy of addicts, right? Like, the heroin addicts thought they were the better addicts, right? Like, because they did heroin, somebody was puffing on air inhalants, and people were making fun of them. And I'm like, is their life miserable? Are they obsessed with this? Can they not break free? Is it any different from your breaking free? So sorry, I'm already off on a tangent, but I'm not going to get into any war stories. So growing up, and Andrew already mentioned my twin brother, my poor dad. Yeah, we've put him through hell. We've put our parents through hell, but we're both working on the other side of it now. But a good childhood. I never really wanted for anything. My dad, role model, my hero, has owned a small business for 40 years plus, 45 years plus, worked his ass off. He set an example. And like, you'll see this theme throughout my story. Ben, what set you off? Some people have traumas. I'm a little bit wacky up there. I just wanted to get high is what it worked out to. But loving parents, played sports. What I noticed from, especially looking back now, I've always had an issue with authority. I feel like, especially now as I've matured, I'm a reasonable and logical human being. And if something doesn't make sense to me, It doesn't sit well. And that, that goes way back to sports, to school. If a coach or a teacher said something that I didn't agree with, there was nobody on this planet that could tell me what to do. Absolutely nobody. I think that serves me a lot better now. But as a child, misguided, immature, and looking back, my viewpoints were just objectively wrong. I was a tough child. So it should have been foreshadowing for what was to come. But, we go through, play sports, do it all. Started drinking in high school, but I played sports. We'd go out maybe once a week, like nothing crazy, but there were very early signs that I was a little bit different. And I have one speed, and that speed is full. So I think back, I was probably 14, 15, 16-ish, and it was one of my first nights, like really binge drinking. I had a couple of drinks before, and I drank myself to a stupor, to a point where I fell down my buddy's staircase on my way to the bathroom to puke, woke up his entire family, got everybody in trouble that we were with, because I had to say I was, I'm puking because I'm drunk. So if I had looked at it then, like that was a very early indication that I wasn't great with it when I did do it. It didn't stop me though. Get into college, and I would say this was the foundation of the unraveling. It didn't get really, really bad, I would say, for another several years, but college set the stage for me to form some really bad habits. Quite frankly, habits I'm breaking out of still to this day. Another recurring theme throughout this is the gym and how it saved me. Freshman year, I was very focused on getting in shape. I grew up watching, Arnold and Kindergarten Cop. It's a look I always wanted. So once I had the time in college, I really started to focus on it. So freshman year, kind of had it in control, because I was getting myself to the gym. And that's the recurring theme here is anytime I lose the gym, my life spirals. But I'll get back. So I'm decent. I start going out more and more. I start going out 6-7 nights a week, but still working out. So I'm functioning. Come back for sophomore year. I'm in the best shape of my life. Had a great summer, worked out a ton. I didn't go to the gym for 4 years. I just started partying, blacking out 7 nights a week. It's funny, I had enough willpower in those days to know that I had an addictive personality and to stay away from the coke. It was everywhere, but I was like, I don't have the money to sustain that habit. And I know once I start, it's going to be a daily thing. So I actually got through college on what I called the kiddie coke, the Adderall, in drinking. It was in copious amounts. It was every day, but it was drinking and Adderall. That's what I kept it to. Is that great? No. But, in my mind, I'm like, okay, you're in college. It's just how it is, right? So again, terrible habits. There were times where I couldn't get myself out of bed for a 2:30 class. Like just disaster. My life was a disaster. I graduated, and this is my intellect. And there are a lot of smarter people out there. I know what I'm good at. I know what I'm not good at it. I'm a fairly intelligent human when it comes to school and things like that. So my intellect allowed me, and this is one of the bad habits I'm still breaking out of. My intellect allowed me to kind of skate by and still look like I'm doing really well. I think I ended up graduating with a 3.2-ish. I probably went to 10% of my classes. I would know a test would be coming up. I'd study for it and just pass it, right? I could teach myself it. So I learned, in my formative years, like, shit, you're smart enough to get by without doing all that much. And then you can go party and do whatever the hell you want. terrible, terrible. College personally did me a disservice. I formed some great relationships. Don't get me wrong. Some of my best friends are out of college, but when I look back at it, what it did for me and the trajectory it set me on, I wasn't ready. I was not mature enough as an 18-year-old to be off on my own without any guidelines. I just wasn't. So I graduate within, I think, a week. I was in the real world, some finance job. I didn't take any time to say, what do I want to do with my life? Right? What do I want to do? I just, okay, this is what we've been conditioned to do, right? Go to college, get a job, or if you don't go to college, learn a trade, do whatever, get a job, and be a good citizen by putting in your time being an employee, right? So I get into this kind of dead end job. I'm drinking heavily. I'm lost. I fucking hate it, but it's money. This is what I'm supposed to do, right? So I just continue doing it, blacking out. I continue on the blacking out 7 days a week, uppers in the morning, Adderall, whatever, and then any type of downer I could find at night. So this was kind of where the pills really started creeping in. Klonopin, Xanax, whatever it may be. I would get my hands on it. It was February, I believe, of 2009. So I'm almost a year out of college. My aunt had passed away, and that always stuck with me for some reason. Not that it had, like, life's precious, right? And I watched somebody I grew up with, very close with those cousins. Like, she passes, for whatever reason, it sparked me to be like, hey man, get your shit together. I think my dad at one point was like, what the fuck are you doing? Right? Like, he might have not said it like that, but that was the message. And I was like, what am I doing? So I cleaned it up, right? And my cleaning up has certainly morphed over the last 10, 15 years. My cleaning up then was get in the gym, keep the partying to the weekends. But again, I got back in the gym. I busted my ass 2 or 3 a days, right? For a long time, I've really used the gym as that outlet. And back then, that's where, when I first started lifting, it was very narcissistic. Like, hey, I want to look good on the beach. I didn't even lift legs. Like, and even post-college, February 2009, when I kind of started my fitness journey for the first time, I wasn't lifting legs. It was a very narcissistic, like, let me get back in shape. It still wasn't like, oh, the gym is saving my life, right? Which is what it has done for me. And what it was doing then, it was at least keeping me somewhat on track. So, I get in good shape. And for the next, I don't know, 5, 6 years, that was my life. Bust ass in the gym, work fairly hard. I got into the tech space. I started making some good money. But partying, man, my whole week would revolve around, what am I doing this weekend? Where are we going? Where are we getting fucked up? Do we have the drugs? I ended up being the drug guy because I didn't want anybody else to be in control of that and to not have them. So whether that be Coke, I went on a huge Molly bender, whatever it may be. I just wanted to get fucked up. And I never wanted to just drink. Like, just drinking, I was like, if I do that, I'm not going to be able to handle that much. I need Coke, Adderall. I need to be able to stay up from Thursday to Sunday, right? Like, I don't want to just do this half-assed and have a drink. That's bullshit. We're getting after it. So that was my life, right? Like, clubs, whether I was at the clubs, whether I was playing golf, like, I'd be on the golf course and I'd be on opiates, Molly, Coke, Xanax, like, golfing. And people are like, you're on more drugs right now than I've ever done in my life on a golf course. Like, what's up with you? I don't know. Just having a good time, man. So just kind of floating around. And again, I'm making more money, so it's keeping me locked in to corporate America, which, slowly started to eat away at my soul. So the opiates at that point, they were little 5 milligram ones. They were They were nothing intense. So it wasn't really an issue. Then the perk 30s came along. And again, it wasn't an immediate thing. It was a slow roll, but because I remember a couple of things there. I got a DUI and the cop, I got found with a 5 milligram perk, and this was in 2010. And the cop, when I got released, my brother and girlfriend at the time came to pick me up, and he said, "These things are going to ruin your life. These perks." And I fucking laughed at him, right? Like the hubris on me to think I know everything. Like, fuck you, dude. I got this in control. A few years go by, same thing, like kind of dabbled with the fives, nothing big. The perk 30s came involved, and that's where it really started to go downhill. I kept it to the weekends, right? Then I kept it to after work when I got home. At the time, I was working out at lunch. Then it was okay, as long as I get my workout in, right? And then just get high at work in the afternoon. For me, opiates gave me energy. I felt like I was on top of the world. I know people nod off and whatnot. Not me. I was fucking go, go, go. Then I got sick one day, like the flu, right? Something along those lines. And it was 6 a.m. before work. And I said, well, I'm not going to the gym today. I feel like fucking shit. So I'm just going to snort a couple of these and be on my way. Well, from that day forward, I didn't go to the gym for a year and a half. That's all it took, was me doing it before work one time for the wheels to completely come off. Had a buddy, some of my close friends knew what was going on. No one knew what to do. I did have one buddy step up, my buddy Mike. He started drug testing me, coming to my place, and he's like, "I'm going to blow up your spot if you don't clean your shit up." So I actually did kick the opiates for a little bit. I did not want my girlfriend at the time. All while this was happening, I got a job promotion down to Tampa for the job I was with. So again, like, I'm still falling upwards. Like, I'm making more and more money, spending more and more money. Get this chance to move to Florida. Either way, she didn't end up coming. But I did stop the opiates for a bit. I moved down to Florida, and I pick up a massive coke and drinking bender. Massive, like every night, blacking out. Like, I would have Friday morning calls, and my routine was go out all Thursday night, snort a line before my 8:30 meeting or whatever time it was on Fridays, and then go to sleep after I talked to my boss. It was a meeting with my boss. So just crazy. I finally got to a point once again where, what the fuck are you doing? And I cleaned it up. So this cleanup was a little bit more cleaned up than my prior cleanup. This one was just Xanax. Right. So get back in the gym, get in shape, and only do Xanax. Like, to me, that was clean. But I hadn't fixed anything. I still thought I knew it all. I still thought I could do this. It just wasn't the case. So all within a couple of weeks, and look, I'm not one to ever make excuses. I kind of knew all along in the back of my mind what I was doing, and that I had a problem, but met a buddy of mine who had to connect to opiates, hurt my back, like, to a point where I couldn't really move. Like, there was a week or two where I really struggled to even get out of bed. It was pretty bad. Girl issues at the time, whatever. It was that culmination to basically say, fuck it. Right. And within 6 to 9 months, I was at the worst bottom I've ever been at. Right. 20 perks a day, $400 or $500 drug habit, massive gambling problem. I lost a $67K commission check in 10 days. A couple months later, lost a $40K commission check in 5 days. Like, just crazy shit with nothing to show for it. It all went up my nose, or to the casino, or to wherever it went. life was not great. The girl had broken up with me at the time. She was doing some travel nursing, but we were still like kind of living together. It was a weird situation. Whatever. It was all coming to a head and coming to it pretty quickly. I knew something needed to change. I was going through I would run out of money. Here I am making well into six figures, like doing decent, and I'm fucking broke. I'm sleeping in my car at nights because my electricity's getting shut off. Car got repoed, eviction notices, right? Like, again, people have had it worse, but I'm making money and I'm still running a little Ponzi scheme, just trying to get fucking $40 at a time, $100 at a time, whatever I could get. Rob and Mary to pay Paul, whatever that saying is, right? Like, hey, give me money, and then I pay people back, and like it was just a clusterfuck. So where it all kind of comes to a head is I had a wedding that I was in. It was my best friend from home, and it was a Friday morning 6 a.m. flight. So Thursday afternoon, I go pick up my drugs for the weekend, right? I'll make these last. Well, they didn't even last the night. So I stayed up all night, did all the drugs that I had saved for the weekend. So by the time I got back to my dad's house, which is where I was staying just for one night. Actually, whatever. Might have had to go to Maine that night. But regardless, I get back and the detox starts, right? And I've been through this detox 100 times. Every time I ran out of money, I just stayed in my house, and I would get up to walk my dog, and that was it. But the hallucinations, the sweating. I think I got up from his couch once from Friday to Sunday to take a piss. My entire family, my sister came by, my brother lives across the street. My dad's on a little weekend getaway somewhere. He comes home. So my entire family is watching this happen. And I think either my brother, and it's funny because my brother had already gotten sober once. So he was in a somewhat sober phase. I'm not sure if he had already kind of started back, but that's neither here nor there. So I have him telling me he got an issue. I got my dad being like, "Are you ready yet?" And I was like, yeah, I think this is it. Flew down to rehab. Both of them came with me. I was living in Florida still. Went back down to Florida to go to rehab. And rehab along with the gym saved my life. But that's because I made a conscious effort that wasn't the life I wanted anymore. I've always felt like I've been meant for greater things. What that is, I'm still trying to figure out. And I really do feel like I've found that path, and we'll cover that in a little bit. But, I looked around and it wasn't a place I wanted to be. Rehab saved my life, but I still said, what the fuck am I doing here? How did I let it get to this? I consider myself a strong person. And for the first time in my life, I had no control. And something struck me one of my first classes at rehab, because I remember going down being like, I'll still drink and party and take Adderall. If I kick the opiates, I'm fine, right? Within the first session, one of the first sentences that was said, it like that, I was like, nope, my life needs to change a lot more than just kicking the opiates. And from there, I took it very seriously. You can see the rehab regulars, right? The people who have been there 10, 15 times and they think they know everything and all they do is talk. And it's like, hey, if you knew everything, you wouldn't be here for 15 times. So I actually kind of avoided them and really took it seriously. If anybody fucked around, I got on them. Right. If I was trying to learn myself, and I I still like, is it CBT?
CBT,
Yeah, the CBT therapy. Like I love that stuff. Like there are some things I still really, really go by, but I took it really seriously. And that was my message in rehab. And I connected with the people who were like-minded. whether any of them stayed sober, I quite frankly, I don't know if anybody did. A lot of people fell by the wayside, but I said, this is it. This is a one and done for me. I will not be back here. I don't give a shit what it takes. I will not be back here. And I made that decision. And ever since I made that decision, this is where I differ a little bit from, I think, a lot of other addicts, even talking with my brother and whatnot, like the cravings, all of that. I didn't have any. I did not have any because I made a promise to myself that I'm not going back to that life. And my life was so pitiful. I remember just lying in bed, like crying, right? Anxiety attacks, just being like, what the fuck is going on? What are you doing? Taking walks, just crying, like not knowing what to do. And drug dealers taking advantage of me. I was their little fucking errand boy, their little bitch. And that's not me. That's not me. Like, how did you let somebody take control over something or somebody else take control over your life like that? You're nobody's bitch, right? So I made that conscious effort right there, right then. You're taking back control. And then for the last 6 years, it's been down the self-development path. And people might think that's cliche or roll their eyes, but along with the gym, the self-development and rehab saved my life. So I started learning more about myself, got heavy back into the gym. Like I said, anytime I was in the gym, my life was somewhat on track. So I knew, and I wanted to get in better shape. I was gross. I was 50 pounds up. I had no muscle. It just wasn't me. So I started hammering the gym and then really just working on being a better human and who do I want to become? And I hope where I've come from 6 years ago is I think I've made some huge strides. In 10 years, if I'm not a better man than I am on this podcast, then I'm doing something wrong. I'm not done learning. I still have a lot of shit to fix, But what I do know is my mind is pretty strong. My mind's a fortress, and there's not much that gets in it that I don't allow. And that's been my path towards, redemption and breaking free of that obsession. And I just remember the nights of feeling so alone, even though I wasn't. I had a family and friends that were there for me. That feeling of feeling stuck in, you know what? I still feel stuck in life sometimes, but I have this with me, right? Which is night and day from when it was back then. I just remember it so vividly, and it's not a life I want to get to. So I'm really passionate about it. And, those feelings come back to me, right? Like sitting in bed, just having an anxiety attack and just crying, like not knowing what the fuck to do. And I know there are millions of people out there. And so what I've done over the past couple of years, but more specifically, more recently, is take everything I've learned and taught myself from various sources and whatnot, my experiences, because since then I've been through relationships, the heartbreak, I've been fired, I've been laid off, right, various shit that I've lost people in who were in the addiction community who, went back out and, they're no longer with us, right? I've faced all that. Nothing has taken me off track. I don't want to say my life's been perfect, right? Like I've been battling. There have been winters in my life that I've had to battle through, but I was able to battle with my mind still intact. And I think it's a message that needs to get out there. So what I'm really looking to do now is build a community of like-minded individuals, whether it's concurrent with an AA or an NA program or any type of program, or it's standalone and you feel like with some support and guidance, you can get your mind back in control. Everyone has their own path and they got to figure it out. For me, I'm not sure. And I'm a strong individual. I really believe that. I'm not sure I was strong enough to break the bond without rehab and just having those 30 days away. I'm not sure if I could have done it without those 30 days, even though I made that decision. If it were around, who knows, I might have got bored, whatever. If you can do it without rehab, great. If you need AA, awesome. It works really well for people. If what I call is the three factors, which is the F3, is kind of my method I came up with. And that is focus, which is broken down to a couple of different things like accountability and discipline, and whatnot. Fitness, which is getting your body right, and then the fuel in which you put into your mind and body, right? So if you have your focus intact, you have your fitness and your physical well-being intact, which helps you connect to your mind, just by how you feel, your function of more energy, better sleep, everything that goes with exercising. And then you're also fueling your body properly with the proper nutrition and what you're putting into your brain. Those are all things we can control. And if we take control, surrender to what we can't, take control of what we can, that's the foundation to getting your life back. And it's much easier said than done. And I think people are always looking for that silver bullet. And I will say there is no silver bullet, and you guys can certainly attest to this. It takes work. Again, I said at the beginning, we're maniacs, we're lunatics. It's a good thing. It's a superpower. But if we don't learn to harness that, then I've certainly seen where that can go. And I think, I don't mean to speak for others, but if they're listening to this podcast or whatnot, most likely they've made some decisions and let that control get away from them. So life post getting my life together, I'm just a happier human. I want more love in the world. And again, it sounds cliche, but I'm also the complete opposite when I run across shitty people. When I see shitty people, it pisses me off, and I'm trying to work on being more stoic, but I don't like bullying. And when I see, and again, I'm trying to work on, but if I see what I consider bullying, even if it's something as stupid as people not putting their weights back at the gym, it just sets me off. Like, stop being such a shitty person, right? So that's where I'm working on. But I've made some really good strides. I'm happier. I'm more positive, and I really believe I was put here to get my message out there. I don't know if that's narcissistic or selfish or whatnot, but I feel like I've done it in a way that isn't maybe necessarily traditional. I went to AA for months. I love the meetings. I love the message. But ultimately, that wasn't the path I chose to stick with. So I just feel like there are other avenues out there. If AA is it for you, unbelievable. I suggest you stick with it. But I think there are other ways to skin the cat, right? And it all starts with getting this thing in control and getting your body, getting your mind and body in shape. And that is what I'm trying to do through a group called Defy Daily. Defy means a lot of things to me, but the core of it is demand excellence from yourself, because that is what each of us need to do. But it also means defying the statistics, right? You guys would probably know them better than I am. What's the rehab statistic for relapses? 96%, 95%, whatever it is. Defy the statistics, defy the odds, defy the haters, defy anyone who's telling you something that's not going to serve you better, right? And if we defy demand excellence from ourselves and just defy in all areas of life, I think that's where we regain control, break the obsession, and never turn back to that life again. Yeah, and that's my spiel. I'm not sure how well. I think I said I was going to do 5 minutes, and that was certainly but yeah, that's my early life and kind of what I've been up to from a very high level the last 6 years, getting my shit together.
I loved your story. I mean, I think it's funny. A lot of people come on this podcast and they say like, oh, I'm not I'm not going to get into this, I'm not going to get into that, I'm going to, it's going to be short, it's going to be concise. And I mean, yours was succinct and, focused, but like we all have more to say than we think we do, you know what I
Yeah,
mean? And that's
for sure.
not a that's a good thing, that's not a bad thing. So I loved hearing, all the background. And Mitch, I think there's a couple things that both of us could identify with. If I could speak for both of us real quick, especially about the early on with the authority thing. I saw Mitch nodding, and I know I was nodding. I never did well with authority, and I always kind of took it upon myself to like be the anomaly and like be the exception. Like
Oh
I'm
yeah,
like I'm
for good or for good or for worse, for sure.
yeah, like you're everyone is telling me to go left, I'm gonna go right, like, and
Yep.
I'm gonna arrive at the same destination or a better destination just to like tell you that my way is always better. So I could identify with that. And another thing that I really could identify with, and it like manifested maybe a little differently, but like my life did, like, and I've never really thought about it this way, so I thank you for bringing this perspective to me. But my life did go to shit like when I stopped taking care of my body. Like and addiction was already present. Like I was an athlete, I was a college athlete for a couple of years, like, and even in high school, like when active addiction really started, I was still playing sports, right? And there was some semblance of order to my life, like, and structure and routine. And I got into college, and more like the drive to do drugs and get high and alter my mind state became more important than the drive to take care of my body and to participate in athletics.
100%.
And eventually, like I played 2 years, and after that second year, that sophomore year of college, like the drive to get high overtook the drive to participate, the drive to be an athlete. And when that happened, I stopped playing, right? And I almost got chills when you were talking about like, and from that day on, I did not go to the gym for X amount of years. And like when I quit the lacrosse team, like when I said I'm not playing anymore, like I did not work out like in a gym and with weights with a any for 4 years,
Yep.
like it 4 years. And then by that time I was in I didn't pick up like a weight and again until treatment.
Yep.
Like that's what it took. So when it's again, I can't thank you enough for bringing that perspective to me, because I'm like, wow, like when that structure like bottomed out, dropped out of my life, like it was like a free for all. There was nothing left for me to, because there was no, like I never woke up and like after a bender would go to a gym and be like, oh wow, like my body's really suffering, maybe I should regulate this a little bit more or try to. Like I didn't have any barometer to measure like, oh wow, I'm really doing a lot of damage to my body. Like
Yep.
it just happened.
And I think it's twofold there. And I could certainly go into this in depth, but one of the many things the gym does is it gives you that, whether you realize it or not, it gives you that purpose of building towards something. What else in your life, aside from like maybe work, if you're building a company or whatnot, what else in your life can you say, I want that, and I know if I put in the work every day, I can achieve it? And that being the body I want, right? Like I want to look like that. So there's something to be said about having that drive to build something, right? It's your body. There is nothing. It's one of the things I'm most proud of, because I know for 2 decades I've put in the work to get, and I've had my times where I didn't go, but no one can take that away from me. Absolutely nobody. Nobody can take away the two-a-days, the torn shoulders, the bad back, the bad knee, the shit I've battled through. And it's inconsequential compared to some of the other shit I put myself through, but no one can take that away from me. So yeah, when that structure, and I feel like it's a big element missing from the recovery community. It is focused on, right? You might, in rehab, you might get to the gym once or twice a week, but I think it's a daily thing. I think, at least for me, that's how important it was. And I know everybody else who has gone down that path says the same thing. It's the link between your vessel of life, your physical being, and your mental well-being. I truly believe that. And it might not be weightlifting. It might be yoga. It might be riding a bike. I don't know what it is, but staying active and being healthy and getting in shape, there are so many reasons why to do it, but why not use it as a way to be proud of yourself, right? Like, and it's not going to happen overnight, right? Think of the years you put in, right? I put several years into getting to be a fat ass, right? It didn't happen overnight, but it did happen within a year, right? Like, granted, I knew what I was doing and whatnot, but it's not overnight. And that's another piece of it that's great. As addicts, me as an addict, instant gratification was very important. The gym's not going to give you any instant gratification. It's going to beat your ass every day, every single day. Most days, even though I love it, most days I don't want to do it. I still fucking do it because I need it, right? And so it just gives, I feel like and it's why it's one of my important factors within the F3 method. I think it's pivotal. You can do it without it. I feel like it's a lot harder.
Yeah. Well, yeah, thank you for sharing. And I really enjoyed listening to your story related to a lot, like Andrew mentioned, issues with authority. I was also heavy onto the Adderall, was very early in my story too. And abusing that led me to some other things. And you mentioned Arnold with the gym. I work out in his gym in Venice. So yeah, which is pretty sick. Like seeing all those dudes and stuff like that, something to shoot for. Gym's a big part of my life.
Oh, you're at the Golds in Venice Beach?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I got to come visit you, man. That's the Mecca.
Yes, sir, it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty sick. I do love the F3s. And as you were talking, I was thinking from my story, I like focus. I like fitness and the fuel. And for me, I was thinking I would add one more for me, which would be faith, like a higher power. And I wanted to ask, like, for you, when it comes to, because I know like recentering our willpower can be really strong in either way, and it's a big part of our recovery for sure. We were just talking last week in terms of sometimes that willpower has got us into the bad spots as well as good spots in recovery. But for me, I think I had to, obviously I still act on willpower and I still act on self-will, but I really have to rely on something greater than me too. Otherwise, I get myself into trouble. So I did want to ask your perspective, experience with a higher power or releasing that self-will.
It's a battle I'm still going through. I was raised Catholic, confirmed Catholic. My scientific brain has always said that's not possible. However, I've always believed there is something out there connecting this earth. There's an energy or a vibe, whether that manifests itself in a God as a human being form in Jesus. I'm not sure. I will say over the past couple of months, I have started praying and trying to see if I can reconnect with what most would consider like, God, Jesus, down the Christianity path, because I do believe in, and I had a moment not too long ago, like, when left to your own devices where that has left you sometimes. So I know there is something greater out there, and I'm still trying to find it and what that means for me. 6 years later, like I said, Nothing's perfect. I do know something's out there as I look more and more into the Christianity, and at its core, though, I, I'm Christian. This is kind of where I'm going towards. Even if God isn't real, what does that leave us with? A message of love, right? That Christianity at its core is be a good human, treat your neighbor how you wanted to be treated, and spreading the word of love. When it comes down to it, it's like absolutely fun. Would you agree? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if that's the message that's being spread around this world, then I'm all for it. Right? I appreciate the sense of community out of religions. It's that struggle, and it's me battling my own mind, thinking I know all, right? And I don't, and I have accepted that. So I do believe in a higher power. Defining what that higher power is, I'm still working through, but I'm creeping my way back to God and Jesus and Christianity.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm going to be probably defining and redefining my higher power for most of my life. I have some of the same scientific whatever, biases and education background, and I do. It's like one of my buddies in the program, somebody I trust and I look up to very much, was like, listen, like it at a certain point, it doesn't matter if God is real or not. Like it's not something that we're gonna he said, hey Andrew, it's not something we're ever gonna be able to concretely prove,
Yep.
like really one way or the other. So it's almost like, would you rather live alone with no faith, or would you rather, you know, decide and make that decision to live in faith of something, because your life will be better. And I believe this for myself, that my life is better having faith in something than being, somebody who just doubts and decides that I'm going to run the show without any sort of help or without any sort of belief and connection with the universe. So, it's a choice. It's kind of a choice thing, like, because I want proof. Like, I'm like, that's the type of person I am, and that's just not something that exists.
Yeah. And then someone said something to me recently, which was interesting. The difference between creation and evolution, right? I do believe in evolution. I think that has been scientifically proven. But when you get back to the creation, and he made a point, like, you think that every living organism on this planet was created from one single cell bacteria that crawled out of the water, and then all this. And if you do research it, yeah. So we don't have to get into a huge religious debate, but the more and more the more I watch, the more I read on it. It's the message. I follow very strong Christian values. Like, I live my life based off, or I try to, as much as I can, basically what the Bible or the gospel would preach. I mean, I really do. So whether he, him, she, it is real, I don't care. It's kind of inconsequential, because the message is what us as addicts, and quite frankly, I think this world needs. We don't have to get any further into it, but this world is in utter chaos right now. So this world could use some F4, F3, or F4.
Yeah. I well, I really like listening to you and like your perspective, because I think that the like empowering addicts and alcoholics, like we kind of mentioned before a little bit. I had that similar view, I think, earlier. Not, or I still have that view, but I had a more um drastic view on that in the beginning, where I was like much farther down the line than what you're saying. I was more like, after I got a year, I took my self-will completely back, and I was like, everyone should know about this, and like about my recovery, and I can do it by myself. I don't need anyone's help. I mean, I had no concept of faith, no concept of community. I really was in love with the idea of doing it all by myself completely, and like I can do it, and not asking for help. And I think the reason I went back into the program and stuff like that was because that kind of drove me insane. I went back to like lying, cheating, and stealing. I moved away from the community. I did I fell back into my old habits that I was doing in active addiction, and I really did not do well out there on my own. So I really like listening to your story and your approach, and I always value everyone's like different recoveries and stuff like that. And I think it's a beautiful thing that there is no one way to do everything. You know what I mean? Like I know guys that do NA, AA, smart recovery, refuge recovery. Fitness is a big part. Fitness isn't a big part. I think that's the beautiful part of the entire thing. The thing that brings us all together is that we're all in recovery together, and we all have a common enemy. And there's comfort in that for me. So I really appreciate hearing your story.
No, I appreciate you guys giving me the time. And Mitch, you just said something about trying to do it on your own. That's basically what I've been doing, and I need more of a sense of community, quite frankly. Within the last couple of months, I had a moment like, man, this is very reminiscent of how I felt, even though I'm not controlled by a substance. I kind of feel like I did in addiction.
Mm.
And I think that's really what has sparked this, because I need more.
Mm.
I need more, and I know I can do more. So it's a great point. I think while I have figured it out on my own per se, I haven't been alone. Like I said, I listen to a lot of people. They don't know me from a hole in the wall, but I haven't been alone in a sense that I have been actively working towards it and listening it and trying to be a better person. But I do feel like 6 years in, I can do more, and I am missing some of that sense of community for sure.
Well, the community will always be here. You know what I mean? I mean, I know I'm not trying to put my story onto yours, but I know that I had a lot of fear of coming back and like re-surrendering, if you will, and redoing. I did the steps again, and got a new sponsor. I ended up moving to a different state, and I didn't see how. And again, I'm not saying this is where you're at, but I was so in my head and in my own way again, and I didn't understand the beauty and the warmth and the weightlessness that was on that other side once I re-surrendered. We were just talking about surrendering and how there's been multiple points in my recovery where I've had to surrender. There's not just one and I'm good to go. And it's beautiful that AA like literally for me like welcomed me back instantly, and right back into the brotherhood and the love in there, and like the love in some of the community groups, whatever group you align with, whatever group sparks with you, that love and that community. I mean, that is what keeps sustained long-term, lifelong recovery. It's right there. It's like in those rooms, whatever's on the door above the room, it's in the rooms. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. And who knows? I've never been the type, like I'm never going to an AA. And now that I'm kind of the thing is, I kind of stepped away from the treatment world in general, the addiction world in general, right? Like I went off, I worked on myself. I'm finding my way back to it because that sense of community is so important. That's why this Defy group is so important to me, right? And it's just at its infancy stages, but that's what I want. I want to build a community, the biggest community, I guess, outside of AA, where it's another avenue, or the avenue. Like I said, like I would never take someone away from their current program, but yeah, it's just another sense of community where people who are like-minded. And not everyone's welcome, absolutely, but I truly want people who it's going to be an empathetic group. a supportive group for everything you need, but it's going to be a group that doesn't handle bullshit. No excuses. We're getting after things, right? We're going to be very purposeful with what we do and taking the next steps to be better people. Similar to AA, but maybe a little. That's just how I work well, right? Like I listen to a couple of people who are very straight to the point, and that's how I respond, right? Like basically stop being a bitch, right? Like that works for me. I understand that's not for everybody, but I do think there are millions of people out there like me who can benefit from that more, not stringent. I don't want to say I'm going to be harsh. It's not going to be freaking boot camp, but it's going to be a very positive and supportive. Let's go. Let's get it. Right. So that's why I'm here. That's how important I think the community is and where it has been lacking in my life. I want to build one.
I mean, I love the idea and the vision. And it's cool, you know. We've interviewed and had a lot of people on this podcast, but I don't think anybody with the same, almost the same vision. And not to take away from any of the guests we've ever had, but it's just it's a new perspective. And that's how these things start, man. Like it comes from the bottom up. Like it comes, you know, AA, NA, refuge, smart, any version of recovery, community, anything. It didn't just pop out of, you know, it didn't just come down from God and all of a sudden, boom, there it is. Like it, you know, it came from a community. It started with a person and then a community.
Yep.
So, you know, we look forward to seeing where this thing goes and you know, hopefully being a part of it, man. But, you know, really
100%.
really enjoyed having you on and you know, I learned a ton and you know, as an ebook, as things develop, you know, I look forward to seeing where it goes.
Yeah. No, you guys have been, I really appreciate again what you're doing, the chance for me to get on here and really tell my story for the first time. It's you guys are doing awesome stuff and absolutely. The point is to build a community of people I enjoy being around and enjoy interacting with, and we all just crush it, man. I get emotional thinking about it. I really do. I just know the pain, right?
Yeah.
How long have you guys been sober?
6.5 years.
Just a little over 2 for me.
So yeah, I mean, you're real fresh in it, like pretty fresh. I know what people are going through, and it breaks my heart. And if people can just get control of this thing, it sounds so much easier than it can be that easy though. It literally can be that easy if you make that promise to yourself. Now, it takes a lot more work than that, but I just you said you know, it's a perspective you hadn't heard, and I appreciate that because I would like to think, although I'm doing things pretty similar, I also have some different thoughts or ideas of how it's done. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to getting your mind in order. But I just really appreciate you guys having me on for this afternoon or the morning for you, Mitch. And I really hope we stay in touch, and I hope I'm back on soon.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got 2 dudes right here that part of that community already for sure. So yeah, man, like-minded for sure. Same idea of trying to foster community and try to get after this thing in a more open and honest way. That's my favorite part about it. Kind of killing that stigma. And yeah, just another sincere thank you. Really appreciate having you on, Ben. And yeah, we'll stay in touch for sure. And if you're ever out here, you know, we'll go hit a lift. That'll be lit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. You guys are awesome.
Thank you. And thank you, everyone that's listening. We will keep coming back. This was episode 45 with Ben. Thank you.
See ya.